Hey guys. Well, you know how I love to do my comparisons, especially pistol comparisons, and sometimes it seems like maybe I get a little creative and I dream up, gee, what if I compared this one to that one or whatever. But sometimes a comparison between two handguns is really a no-brainer, and trust me, no-brainers are my specialty. So today I'm going to look at two very similar, certainly very competing handguns, and that is the Glock 26 Gen 4 Smith & Wesson M&P 9C. Again, extremely similar in so many ways, but also certainly some key differences between them, not the least of which is going to be very subjective, things like ergonomics, feel, and all that. But let me go over just some real high-level basic stuff, the things that make these things the same and slightly different. First of all, they are very, very similar in size in pretty much every way, length and width and height and all that, but there are some small differences. The M&P is a longer gun, just by a little bit. It also has a little bit longer barrel, but very little. The Glock's barrel is spec'd at 3.42 inches, the M&P at 3.5 even. So, 0.8, so less than 1/10 of an inch difference between those two in barrel length. But you do see some difference in the overall length, about that same amount. Okay, the sight radius, I don't have exact measurements, but if I line up the rear sight to rear sight, you can see that there's a definite advantage with the M&P, much more so than just barrel length. You're up well over a 1/2 inch longer sight radius on the M&P. The height of the two pistols, very comparable depending on what magazines you've got in them. These both have what I call the pinky extension magazine. The Smith & Wesson M&P 9C comes with the pinky extension magazine. Glock 26 does not, and that's another key difference. Standard capacity in the M&P 9C, depending on what state you live in, is 12 rounds, 12 in the magazine, so 12 plus 1. Standard capacity for the Glock 26 Gen 4 is a 10-round magazine, or 10 plus 1, regardless of what state you live in. So I've got an extended magazine that takes this to 12 rounds. But you can do it. You can get the 26 up to a 12-round magazine, and in doing so, you also get that sort of pinky extension, pinky rest extension as well. So you make the grip feel very similar by doing that. Now here's a spec that I found interesting because I looked them up. The weight of these two pistols is virtually identical. The Glock 26 Gen 4 is spec'd at 21.71 ounces. M&P 9C, 21.7 even. We're talking about 1/100th of an ounce. It's almost, if your scale is dirty, it's going to make that much difference. So identical weight between these two guns. So what else is the same and different, or what things are we capable of with both of these? And again, very similar, very good head-to-head matchup here. Like I said, the Glock 26 comes with a 10-round magazine. I've got a couple of those 10-round magazines here I'm going to use today. You can also get the 12-round extended magazine that I've got in the pistol right now. You can also use a standard Glock 17-round magazine for 9mm. I'm going to try and kill a couple birds with one stone here today, because it's all about how many birds you can kill with the fewest amount of stones, apparently. And I'm going to use the Magpul magazines because I haven't really tested the Magpuls, and you may have seen my video about the recall and what I thought was wrong and all that good stuff. So I've got one pre-recall and one post-recall, and I might put some rounds through these just to see if anything manifests itself. But you can put the 17-round magazine in the Glock 26 and it'll function just fine. You can also put 17-round M&P magazine in the M&P 9C and it'll function just fine. Same. Now the one advantage you have with the Glock that you don't have with the M&P, the 33-round fun stick. You've got a 33-round magazine for 9mm with the Glock that will function just fine in the Glock 26. Yeah, it might make the gun print a little bit when you carry it, but it sure is fun. The Glock, of course, has the polygonal, however you'd like to pronounce it, rifling, which is a sort of a smoother, rounder type of rifling in the bore. Smith & Wesson has the standard lands and grooves type of rifling. The only real difference is, you talk about accuracy, they'll talk about keeping the bore cleaner and all that kind of stuff, and yes, that's all fine. What it really comes down to for a lot of us is, you can shoot lead bullets through this one, you can't through this one. All right, so I got a bunch of different kinds of ammo here. I'm gonna load these things up, and I've got a couple targets downrange. I'm gonna start having a little fun. M&P 9C, comparing to the Glock 26 Gen 4. What I like about the Smith & Wesson, probably above all, is the ergonomics. This is just a really super comfortable pistol to hold, like all M&Ps are. Fits your hand very well, just feels very comfortable. I feel like I have a lot more trigger reach with the M&P than I do with the Glock, so I've got a little bit more, in fact, to the point where I'm almost afraid sometimes of getting too much trigger. But my groups have looked good, they haven't been pushing left, so looks like I'm all right. But I definitely get more trigger. More trigger means you've got a little more strength on that trigger, which you kind of need for the M&P because it does have that little bit of squishy type of trigger. Let's do a little shooting. The slide stop, slide release is really more of a slide stop because it doesn't work too well as a release on the M&P. Do a little one hand. Slide stop, slide release is a release on the Glock. It's a lot easier to run the Glock fast because you have that consistent trigger. Might be a little heavier, not everybody's going to like it all the time, but it is consistent from one Glock to the next. M&P, not quite so much. All my M&Ps have a little bit different trigger feel. Glocks pretty much all have the same trigger feel. There's an advantage to that. This is with a Magpul magazine. First failure to feed of the day, but this is with the post-recall magazine, so. "15 yards. First up, Glock 26, Gen 4. And the first ammo is going to be PMC. PMC bronze. We're gonna start in the upper left, go around the clock. 5 rounds each. Okay, next up, blazer brass. Now, tall ammo, steel cased, lower right. Gonna go to the lower left. It's gonna be herders. Okay, and then last but not least, Freedom munitions, going dead center. And this time I'm going to hold dead center. Next up, Smith & Wesson M&P 9C. New target, same exact program, same pattern of ammo, starting with PMC bronze in the upper left. Okay, moving over, upper right, blazer brass. Okay, lower right, Tull ammo. Got some seriously sweaty hands going here too. Okay, switching to our flush mount mag. We will go to lower left with Herders. Herders Select. Okay, last and still not least, dead center, Freedom Munitions. And like with the G26, I will make dead center my hold. Okay. Okay, so you saw the 15-yard shooting. So I'm not going to go group by group and talk about each one of these different groups. That would be fairly redundant, even for me. But what I'm going to do is just talk about a couple of the highlights. Okay, so let's just look at some of the best groups. This is the target from the M&P. Sort of a tie a little bit. I measure the 5-shot group, and then I measure the best 3 of that 5. And that helps take me out of the equation, and it seems a little bit more fair. So the PMC ammo, which was the first ammo fired up at the upper left, had a 5-shot group of 2.16 and a 3-shot group of under a ½ inch, 0.447. That was a very good performance, and it was closely tied, or nearly tied, by the Tull ammo down at the lower right with a 5-shot group of 2.367 and a 3-shot group that's literally all in one hole. We have this sort of trilobular hole here, and I measured what I thought was, center to center for the 2 furthest in that triangle, and I came up with just over 1/4 inch at like 0.273 is what my caliper told me at that particular time. But you could make an argument that it's really 0 because, it's one ragged hole. So, based on that, then this group, kind of reminds me of Mr. Blutarsky, 0.0. And moving on to the Glock 26, 15 yards also, of course. The best group was really, we got basically the same situation. The PMC yielded the best really in both measurements. So the best 5-shot measurement and the best 3-shot measurement. Again, this 3-shot measurement here from PMC, one ragged hole, kind of strung a little bit vertically there. So 1.92 for 5 shots, under 2 inches, and 0.457, again under ½ inch, for 3. Pretty good. The tall ammo comes in at a very close second with a 5-shot group of just a hair over 2 inches and a 3-shot group of 0.814. So pretty good. Really good. Ignore that blue circle that you see right here because this one is part of that 3-shot group. So that's what makes that so big. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So looking at all that then, what's the next question? The next question is, which one of these guns is the better gun? Well, I don't know if you expected me to actually choose one and say this one's better. I would if there were some obvious reasons to do that. But I got bad news for you. There are no obvious reasons. Extremely close. These guns are so close in so many ways. And it's interesting because Glock and Smith & Wesson obviously take very different approaches to handgun design, and they approach their challenges different ways. But the result is that they have both engineered extremely good pistols. A Glock is a Glock, right? So it looks like a Glock, it smells like a Glock, and it shoots like a Glock. Trigger's going to feel consistent on almost every single Glock you pick up, and you're going to understand exactly how it works. You know, there's really no surprises with a Glock, and that simplicity is their strength. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and their reliability, and you can't take that away. So the Glock is reliable. You can count on it. It's accurate, and it's simple and consistent. So the Glock 26 is all of that, and that's, you know, pretty high praise. The M&P is an extremely well-designed line of pistols. And again, Smith & Wesson approaches a lot of their designs differently than Glock has, and it's a more complex pistol in many ways in terms of controls and things like that. But the simplicity is that, you know, it's very consistent in its performance. Now, the one thing that I will say about M&Ps is I don't find the triggers to be terribly consistent. You know, I own like half a dozen M&Ps, and I've got half a dozen different triggers as far as the way they feel and, you know, the way they break and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of inconsistency among triggers within the M&P line, and I think if they, you know, if suddenly tomorrow I found myself running Smith & Wesson, and we all know just how likely that is to happen, that would be the thing. When I gathered all the troops, that would be my that would be my mantra. Would be, you know, let's work out this trigger. But having said that, I don't mind it as much as a lot of people do. A lot of people, I literally know people, friends of mine, who won't touch an M&P because they just can't deal with the trigger, or they had such a bad experience with one. You know, they had one they hated so much that they're not interested in looking at it anymore, which is kind of a shame because, boy, there's so much to like about an M&P. The ergonomics, very superior to Glock in my opinion, and that is my opinion because that's very subjective. But this gun performs. It's accurate. It does not fail. And so, you know, what you sacrifice maybe is, yeah, a little squishier trigger that's a little inconsistent. Not inconsistent to the unique pistol, but inconsistent among the product line. And that's about it. So I definitely love the M&P 9C, and I love the Glock 26 Gen 4. So I'm happy that I don't have to choose, and I'm not going to do the if I had to pick one right now, which one would I pick thing, because it's silly and I wouldn't. So these are extremely equal. These are probably as equal as any two guns I have ever compared. There's so little difference. All the differences between these two pistols are user preference type of differences. You know, if you like Glocks and you're a huge Glock fan, then you're going to like the Glock. And if you like M&Ps and you're a huge M&P fan, you're going to like the M&P. Everything else, same.